over the last 40, 45, 50 minutes. So we're looking forward to solving all of that. So I think the first place we'll start is one of the more complex areas for sure, around skills and training. We know that this is extremely challenging, whether we're talking about labor, so shop floor, truck drivers, but also, of course, digital and software and all the issues that we face. So to tell us exactly what you need to do to solve all of this in Brazil and South America, I'm going to hand over to Stefan Gruner to share some insights from what you discussed on the think tank here.
Thank you, Chris. Bem, pessoal, o assunto é bem amplo, a gente teve uma boa...
Well, this is a very broad subject. We had a very warm discussion here. It was very interesting. I'll try to summarize what we discussed. First, we focused a bit more in what challenges the companies are facing in terms of digitalizing the business. On one hand, there are companies that have made a digital strategy that have a more macro goal. I want to reach Industry 4.0, but this is a very sophisticated stage in industrial automation and all that. And that causes some discomfort and fear sometimes. And often people cannot understand how they are going to take part in this project that will reach such an important target that will completely transform the company's business. So there is a concern factor. And we also discussed how older generations are dealing with that. Young people who are entering the market, X, Y, Z generation. And there's a difference in terms of expectation. There's a more conservative or way of thinking, resistant to change, and a more linear, hierarchical way of thinking. And others that are coming want to attain results fast, are very impatient. We saw some examples that we discussed of people who learned to speak English from an app, and someone who's been at the company said, no, I cannot, I don't have time, I cannot pay for the course. So it's more about the behavioral aspect and also about knowledge. How can we make this happen? Everyone must understand in real terms what is their purpose in the company. The older people, for example, have always identified with the structures, they got used to the way of working. But younger people come with different demands. They identify with the tasks they are performing. And what is the benefit that they would bring to the process? Everybody thinks, what am I adding to this activity? So in one hand, it's necessary when we talk about the business world. We also discussed universities. It's important to have a very concrete, down-to-earth roadmap. And for the digital transformation, it's a very long one. It starts with the inconsistent data about the packaging weight, the project of GM that would create a pool of data that would give intelligence to the business. You know, there's so much work ahead of them. But so there's a lot of activity behind it, and each of us must understand how they take part in this process. Instead of thinking of artificial intelligence as a monster that would take over my job. It's much more about having an environment in which people are able to work more openly with more collaboration among the several areas and partners, either in-house or external partners. So I don't necessarily have to be a programmer to work in a digitalization project in a company. I can be a specialist in in-house logistics. I know all the processes, but I don't know anything about coding or software. But if I have an open mind and look forward, look outside and do my research, and if I know where to look for the information, I can add something to that process. The web, there's a large amount of information, but I must always know who to talk to, where to go. Of course, this is not easy. It's a great opportunity, but it's very inspiring. I think this is one of the most complex areas. We are causing impact in the areas of the company all the time and all the supply chain partners. So, what is missing?
We'll have to show the companies where is the roadmap to clarify things to company because they need to explore and to check their competencies. And on the other hand, we have to prepare people. We spoke a little bit about the quality of professionals. To do an MBA with 21, 22 years, I don't know. It was a little bit different before. The expectations are too huge. We have a large quantity of universities in the country where the quality is quite low. So it brings about a distorted expectation for you to have an end-to-end vision of supply chain. You have to get in the supply chain to know about the different areas. It's half a year. Half a year, the supply chain, it's endless, you know. If you pick up all the areas that we need to know about, it will take a long time. So our debate was within this line of thought, and that's that.
I think you touched upon many of the major issues. As you mentioned, it's very broad. There's so much to face. But I think understanding what millennials want, what the new generations want, how we can be more agile in terms of working with experts in the new technology like software, but also the heads of business units, the experts in the day-to-day. This is how we can make some of this technology really work for us and the skills in the future. We're going to hear more on skills and human resources actually in the next session from the gentleman that I'm going to hand this microphone over to now. But for now, Fabio Garcia, why don't you tell us a bit about what the table discussed in spare parts logistics?
Boa tarde, todo mundo.
Afternoon to all of you. The debate here was quite good, very productive. We started speaking about a theme that is not much in our agenda, which is the minimum freight table. And we didn't reach a conclusion, so we decided to change the subject. So we spoke about next day delivery. Next day delivery is a wish of the O&Ms, mainly for the handling of vehicles that are not running. We had GM, Nissan, Ford, Volkswagen, and others, and some of our suppliers, and 3 logistic operators. So the debate was very interesting because we have different points of view. And we came to the fact that we have restrictions in the country, that we all suffer from the same type of restriction for transportation, for delivery, we do not have sufficient connections or capacity of transporting loads. We have barriers for going by air to the problems at the airports. We have CFAs and SUFRAMAs. Those are the challenges. We have to overcome them in order to deliver next day. After we talked, we opened up a line of thought, perhaps a possibility of a road forward, an advanced stock placed in different sites in Brazil, and perhaps we could have a cooperation. Just one M alone would not deal with that. Perhaps cooperative system, could work in between the several O&Ms so that we have the products there and we can deliver next day. But the cooperation to function, we have to have an exempt partner working with us because we have to deal with compliance problems too. And the submission of data, common data to each and everyone. Would you want to add something? Did I say everything that we thought here? Thank you.
Interesting summary there. I think it was good that you focused in actually on something specific there around next day. But this idea of collaboration and working closely together, obviously really important and something we love to see promoted here. We'll now move over to solutions for infrastructure. Another session, another problem I'm sure can be solved in 5 minutes here from Antonio Toronto.
Antonio. We didn't come to any conclusion. We spoke about football, for instance. We showed the situation of our infrastructure, which is very difficult for the next 8 years, according to the PAC, that should be approved next year. It's going to take 8 years to have any improvement. So we have to work with what we have in our hands and the solutions with what we already have. On the other hand, in terms of infrastructure, we have a technology quite advanced in terms of information. So we have lots of information in the market. And here we spoke a little bit as a complement to what was said by the prior group. I used an example of cooperative logistics. The example that we gave here is the following. We are X number of O&M. All of us have the supply base. The supply base is composed of 1, 2, 3 deposits or warehouses. Those warehouses would take care of the exclusive parts of that O&M, and they go and just deliver to their own delivery network. So we created a challenge here for the group. So don't you see the complexity of the graph here that we are dealing with? Perhaps we could be better than that, do better than that in this cooperative logistics. Who has the experience of checking on a route where we have several distributors. You see that one of the trucks reach one distributor and then another OEM truck goes there. And many times there are always the complaints about cost reduction, and many times it becomes such a low cost that then the quality is going to be hampered. So we thought perhaps we could share the distribution centers Toyota has a distribution center in the northeast or in the southeast. Ford the same thing, Fiat same thing. So perhaps we could share distribution centers and we could share transportation. What's the main obstacle? Is agreement in between O&Ms, and we went a little bit more in depth here. Because first, we do not have an agreement in between O&Ms. Nobody debates that because this is not a priority of the person that is taking the decision and has to reduce the cost. It's not a priority within O&M. And we also spoke about proposals that 3PLs present to O&Ms. This is a new project that I have here. I could offer that to you with some reductions. And then, the O&M cost reduction? What's that? I never thought about this possibility. You know, people don't trust the proposal because the other side doesn't understand what the proposal is all about. Because main suppliers, large companies, they outsourced the logistic operation. So few know logistics to debate a certain route. Should it be covered by one load in a truck or a fraction of a load in a truck? So it's in the hands of 3PLs. And the trust is not that great. We also spoke about 3PL that gets the discount. For instance, here it was 3%. And when the person from the operation that has the responsibility of the costs in the company has a task coming from control, people from purchase says I want 10% discount. So 3PL was there fighting for 3% and suddenly somebody says top down, I need 10. You have 3, so give me 7. So many times 3PL doesn't tell the others that they already have 3% because 3PL has 3%. And the O&M asks for 10 and uh, 3PL reaches the 10% reduction. No, you know, the winner is the person that doesn't know a thing about that, the control that said, I told you it would be possible. Where are we going to be able to solve the problem? I believe that it's at Anfavia level. And the group here created a solution presenting a proposal that I believe has a meaning. First, we should start with a pilot plan, one route, one supplier. And the initiative should not come from our colleagues from O&M because, a person will decide, I shall do that. But then, GM meeting will not be uh, correspondent to a meeting of another O&M. So I established a challenge. I'm going to talk to Megali from Monfavia and I'm going to show the design that we created here together. The package is going to be available here at Automotive Logistics. If you want to add something, please do. So next step, we have to create a commission within Anfavia itself, showing in reality something concrete. Because we said, oh, okay, let's do that, but how much will be the reduction? What's the improvement we're going to get? If possible, let us not speak only about cost reduction. They want to deliver the part next day because they have clients that are waiting for the part to come there, and you have to satisfy the customer always. So there are other things involved as well. Another point. Let's we pass all this technology within the process, all the cost technology, uh, and the first thing that is become an obstacle is, for instance, the freight cost. I have the technology, it's costly. I'm going to input that in price. Try to do that. And you have the controls, you have the ones that um, really have the last decision. Okay, after you do everything, then you want to incorporate that in price and cost. The price is always lower. Sorry, I cannot hear what is being said. I have contact with Megali, but if you have another contact, please do so. Uh, I have the buy-in of the representatives of O&Ms, because we can go there and ask for it, but we have work to carry out. There is a commission within Anfavia debating inbound, and so we have to go more to the details of the aftermarket, because within Anfavia, aftermarket has no control. And when we go to distribution of parts, there is much to be done and many opportunities to be taken. Somebody from the group wants to add something? Did I say everything? Did I touch upon all the points?
A lot of great ideas there, and obviously some very concrete stuff to build upon there more around the discussions furthermore about collaboration and Anfavia. We look forward to hearing more updates on that, and please do use Automotive Logistics, the publication, as a resource to communicate these messages, to reach people. We're here to connect you, so it's not just an event once a year, it is actually to try to carry this through, so let's follow up on that. Another really easy area, which again Sharon will solve for us in 5 minutes. Sharon Gray from SHEP on packaging. Thank you.
Thanks. Hello. English, okay? Okay. So basically the first thing we all agreed on is that packaging is not seen as an asset within our own organization. So a lot of times they don't value it or assess what that value is as much as they should. We also know that the decisions about packaging need to be made further upstream in the supply chain. A lot of times it can be more at the end, like after everything's designed, ready to ship, and then it's like, well, what are we going to ship it in? And so that needs to be done earlier in the supply chain. There's a challenge that we need to meet the sustainability goals that are out there now. But to do that, it's challenging because we do have the corrugate that is disposed of and so forth. So everyone's trying to reduce those uses of corrugate, but there isn't always an appropriate replacement. I'll talk to you later. But and then also too, I heard about the organization Anfavia, and that there is a logistics organization within Anfavia, but it was agreed amongst the group that it would be beneficial if they could have a subcommittee created that is strictly focused on packaging and to be able to raise their concerns from an industry perspective as opposed to just each individual organization, having their individual challenges. Intercontinental, that was the one other thing, the flows that are intercontinental are more challenging because you don't have the balanced flows all the time going back and forth. So a reusable packaging solution isn't always the best solution just because of volume. So that was what fed into that idea of, well, if we could look at this from an industry perspective instead of individuals, we might be able to improve on that, on the intercontinental flows as well. Did I cover most of it? Okay. All right, thank you. Obrigado. My one word.
Obrigado. Thank you, Sharon. So we have more work for Anfavia. it sounds like, although there were some discussions, perhaps some of these committees perhaps exist in some form, so, or if they don't, again, we'll make sure we pass on this communication. And if others have information already, you know, that some of this activity is happening at a common level, which maybe, you know, we can bring others together who aren't involved. So I think it's a good point. Our last table here, talking about vehicle imports and ports, I'm going to hand over to Christoph.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll do this in English as well. We had a pretty good table. We had, I think, 3 car manufacturers, several logistics providers. The logistics providers were both from the RoRo and the container side. Our company does containerized shipments, so we specialize in putting cars in containers, and so we brought that perspective to the table. Essentially, we identified some key issues that are plaguing Brazil when it comes to vehicle imports, and the big one is the imbalance, Brazil being primarily an export country. So the RoRo carriers have the challenge that it's a heavily northbound demand and very little southbound. We always joke that obviously a natural solution for all of that is put everything in containers, which we are doing for BMW, and I think it's working quite well. So others are looking at that as well. For the RoRo side, I don't want to go into too much details because it's not my expertise, but so far it's sort of the status quo is working. It's not going to get much worse. I think the hope is that Argentina will recover to some degree, and that over time Brazil will become more of an import country as well, and that will balance the flows out as well. The 2 other primary issues are the pretty bad infrastructure in terms of the conditions on the road and rail, and the other one being the fairly complicated tax regime in Brazil. And another joke we were making is that Mr. Bolsonaro will fix everything. But joke aside, I think there's a decent amount of cautious optimism that some good choices have been made in terms of hiring or bringing on board some good leadership that should bring about some positive reform that will make a difference. The table agreed that the priorities in terms of the new government will most likely be is it called pension reform, or what would you call it? Is it the reform of the pension system, or yeah? So that would be the first priority. Taxes, the tax regime would be the second one, and then infrastructure and others would come next. So hopefully the new regime, the new government will make some significant changes in the infrastructure. When it comes to the imbalance, I think that's just macroeconomics that won't change overnight, and it's something that the industry just has to deal with at this point. Some other issues regarding the difficulty in dealing with inbound flows is that for example, ports in the south of Brazil are not that willing to develop a solid RoRo infrastructure. So BMW, for example, is doing quite a good amount of container imports because RoRo is just not doable or viable in some of those ports. Cabotage is not possible in Brazil. That could solve a lot of these infrastructure problems. Again, that's something that most likely won't change anytime soon. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christoph. Obrigado. So a good summary of many of the issues going there. Sort of the subtle indication that maybe the container can fix everything. But do you think if the politicians don't do a good job, we can put them in a container and ship them away as well? Not to the UK. We've got enough problems there, please. Yeah. Yeah. I have a British and an American passport, and Trump definitely fixed everything, and Brexit has fixed everything. So good luck. But all right, now politics aside, I won't tell you more about what I think. No, but really, seriously, some good points there, and I think we come down more about the sharing of ideas and what we can just on one table and the different perspectives, different practices, different expertise. That's the point of bringing you together to do this. So thank you for that. I hope you enjoyed them. Just a couple of notes before we break for coffee. There is some feedback forms on the table here. There's some copies in English and in Portuguese. Before you leave today, please fill it out. and give us your feedback. Let us know what you'd like to see differently, better, what you enjoyed, content, etc. If you're leaving early, please fill it out before you go. If you're coming later on to the gala dinner, I mean, it depends on how good you feel after a few caipirinhas in terms of filling it out. Maybe that would help us, actually. So it's up to you, but at least give us your feedback. It's really important to us. We'll break for coffee, and then we're coming back for our last session. We'll have a presentation from Fabio, in fact, talking a bit more about skills and talent. And then we have a great panel with Ford, General Motors, and Toyota, and Fabio as well, Volkswagen, looking to the future, talking about future skills and development, and sort of rounding out the themes and changes to come. So don't miss that. And then right after that, we're going to the gala dinner. So if you're coming, and I hope you are, come ready to go. We'll have buses that can take you there, or of course you can drive. But we'll talk more about that later. Thanks again. Enjoy coffee.